Welcome to College Prep Confidential, empowering your student with the elite tools they need to get accepted to their dream university. Discover test-taking blueprints from Ivy League professionals, financial aid secrets to get more money for school, and mindset tips for a better college future. Now please welcome your host, Don Sevcik.
Welcome to episode 5 of the College Prep Confidential podcast. Today's episode is titled, Financial Time Machine Earns You $87,050 over 10 years if you avoid this 4-letter word. In the 1985 science fiction film Back to the Future, Marty McFly, played by Michael J. Fox, accidentally travels back in time to 1955 in a DeLorean invented by his friend, genius scientist Doc Brown. Now in the movie, 1955 happens to be the year where his mom and dad first meet as love interests. When Marty arrives back in 1955, he makes a series of mishaps, resulting in him interrupting his mom and dad's initial meeting. Because of this interruption, his mom and dad do not get to meet as expected, throwing off their path to romance. Because of this, the fabric of time gets interrupted. Marty later pulls a photo out of his pocket of him and his family in the future back in 1985. Hours after the interruption of his parents' first romantic meeting back in 1955, Marty takes the photo, pulls it out of his pocket, and he sees the picture of him and his siblings start to fade away and disappear. Marty's mishaps caused his parents to not have their first romantic meeting back in 1955. And if Marty's parents don't start dating, they never have kids. And Marty is never born. Now, college prep also has a time machine, just like the movie Back to the Future. And this time machine helps you avoid mistakes now, which, if you made those mistakes, hurt your future self. I'll get to the time machine in just a moment. But first, there is a 4-letter word which hurts your future self. This 4-letter word means the difference between a future saddled with debt or a bright future where your money works for you. And this 4-letter word rears its ugly head during college prep. I'll give you a clue to the 4-letter word just in case you haven't figured it out. And the clues involve some famous quotes. The core principle of finance holds that, provided money can earn interest, any amount of money is worth more the sooner it is received. How about this quote? Compound interest is the 8th wonder of the world. He who understands it earns it, and he who doesn't pays it. That's Albert Einstein. How about legendary investor John Bogle? Time is your friend. Impulse is your enemy. And how about one more? Billionaire investor Warren Buffett, who everybody knows. And he says, someone is sitting in the shade today because someone planted a tree a long time ago. Now ask yourself, how could you, as a financial time traveler, hurt your future self? What could you do now to make your future worse? And the answer is a 4-letter word I'll reveal in a moment. Now let me set the scene again in Back to the Future. When the past gets altered in 1955, Marty's picture of his family starts to fade away. Because once again, if the parents never date, they never get married. And if they never get married, they never have kids, including Marty and his siblings. You see, the same kind of future alteration happens with another nasty 4-letter word. I said it about 2 minutes ago, and I don't know if you caught it, but this 4-letter word is debt. Before I show you the numbers to support my case, consider these statistics. In the media, there's a disease, a name they've coined, called debt-itis, and it's spreading. And all the proof you need is on Debt.com's personal finance statistic page, where you'll find symptoms like these. Nearly half of Americans are concerned, anxious, or fearful about their current financial well-being. The average credit card balance is now $6,375. This is up 3% from the last year. And finally, 17% of Americans carry student loans. And I'm going to tell you just how much in a moment. These numbers are backed up yet by another poll, this one of college-educated Americans. There is a lender called Laurel Road, and they ask 1,000 graduates about their, quote, financial lives. The results were grim. First, more than half don't ever think they'll make enough money to reach their financial goals. Even worse, millennial women are significantly more stressed than their male peers about their finances. And here comes the statistic to top them all off. Americans, as I talk to you over this microphone, in May of 2019, owe over $1.56 trillion in student loan debt. And this is spread out among 45 million borrowers. This number, by the way, is about $521 billion more than the total U.S. credit card debt. This consists of direct loans, FFEL loans, and Perkins loans. Total amount of federal borrowers at the end of 2018 was 42.9 million borrowers. Now, what about the alternative? Let's go back to the movie Back to the Future. When Marty finally gets things in order and he sets up a date between his future parents, his photo begins to reappear. He undoes his mistakes and he sets the past in motion the way it should be so that the future works as expected. And the question becomes, how do you undo or avoid debt? In other words, how do you avoid the mistakes that Marty made in the past to hurt his future self? The answer is investment. Let's review how your future gets molded for college prep. Suppose, for a moment, you do not maximize your financial aid, and you take on an additional $30,000 of debt. Now, if we take $30,000 of debt, we roll that at 5% for 10 years or 120 months into a loan, the monthly payment is $318.20. 10 years equals 120 months. 120 payments will add up to $38,184. The interest paid on top of the $30,000 you borrowed in principal is $8,184. And that's if you pay on time. Now let's say you maximize your financial aid and had the $30,000 paid in grants or financial need. You take this $30,000 at the time of college prep and you invest it at 5% for the same 10 years. You don't make any future payments. You simply drop the $30,000 in an account which earns 5% compound interest every year. Remember that compound interest that Albert Einstein talked about. After 10 years, you'd have $48,866.84. And by the way, in 15 years, if you remember the little lesson I gave you about the power of compound interest, your money, my friends, will double. Think about it. Imagine you're walking down the street and $1 falls out of your pocket. For whatever reason, you don't feel it. The dollar just falls out, you keep walking, and you forget about it. In 15 years, the same dollar comes running back into your arms, but this time it's got another dollar attached to it. If you knew this, how many dollars would you, quote unquote, drop? Because this is what happens at 5%. Your money doubles every 15 years. Now let's compare what you lost if you took out $30,000 in debt versus what you could have gained if you got the financial aid taken care of. When you take on $30,000 of extra debt, you end up paying $38,184 over 10 years. Translation, you are in the hole $38,184. But if you had that $30,000 taken care of through financial aid, or you worked with college financial aid experts and got the money paid for via a grant or financial need from the college, you then took that $30,000 you didn't have to give to the college and you invested it at 5%, compounded annually for 10 years. As I said before, you would end up with $48,866.84. Now let's calculate the difference between the two scenarios. You could either lose $38,184 or pick up a gain of $48,866.84. If I take the difference between these two numbers, I end up with that magical number in the title of this episode, $87,050. And here, my friends, is the point. In the future, if you're saddled with extra debt, you jeopardize your future. Meaning, if you take out loans now, you're going to affect your future self. Just like in Back to the Future, when Marty's picture fades away. Your bank account and your future financial prospects fade, just like the picture of Marty and his family. And it's not just you, it's your kids that have to take on this debt as well. You see, simply by taking time or getting help on student finance for college, before you ever lay out any of your own cold hard cash, you would have had an $87,050 spread. When I look at this number, I think of the movie Back to the Future again, where Marty and Doc, this is part 2, by the way, Marty and Doc lose the almanac. There's a sports almanac that tells all the scores up through a certain year. And the bad guy in the movie, Biff, gets it, goes back in the time machine, gives it to his younger self, and tells his younger self to put all his money on the winners, since he has the list of scores. Now, when Marty goes to the new point in time, he doesn't realize that Biff, the bad guy, went back in time and gave his younger self the sports almanac. The future has changed again. This time, Marty's family is poor and everything is destroyed. And Biff, the bad guy, is rich. And because of that, the entire future is altered for the worse. I use both Back to the Future Part 1 and Back to the Future Part 2 as a metaphor, highlighting the two futures you have when you take steps for college prep and financial aid. Biff, or the bad guys, is debt. And your good future, Marty's dream future where his family's together and his photo does not disappear. It's all him and his siblings together. This is the good future. And this, my friends, is investment. Because the most valuable commodity in life is time. Time with your family. Time to enjoy your money. Time to live a fulfilled life. And with student loan debt, it takes away time from you to be paid. So the question becomes, what can you do now? What financial time machine that I mentioned in the title of this episode can you use to chart a better future course? The DeLorean time machine of college prep is an amortization calculator. Amortization calculators show what your payment, both principal and interest, would be on any sort of loan you take out. This amortization calculator allows you to peer into the future and see what debt versus investment will give your future self. And it got me thinking back to the most valuable asset, time. Once the time is gone, you can't ever get it back. And I recently read a fascinating review of the Back to the Future movies related to the importance of time. In the Back to the Future movies, you have to drive the DeLorean time machine 88 miles per hour to activate the time travel sequence so you can jump back and forth in time. Now here's where it gets fun. Here's the tie-in with numbers and time. If you take the number 8 and you turn it on its side, it's the symbol for infinity. Now, this seems to be a nod by the directors of the movie to the infinite nature of time. Time goes on, but we as humans only have so much of it. And if you get saddled with additional student loan debt, it takes away from your time. The entire Back to the Future movie, by the way, features clocks in many of the scenes. And they're there as a subtle reminder to us about the power of time. And this is why I brought you this episode. Because your time can be expanded or contracted based on the decisions you make now. And using money as an important decision in your life. If you take away nothing else from this episode, listen to this sentence right now. Debt contracts your time, while investment expands your time. So the question is, how do you fix these problems in advance? Well, the answer is simple, and I covered some of this in episode 4. If you've not listened to that episode, by the way, I recommend you go back and absorb the free tips I gave for how to extract more financial aid out of college. Because the more aid you get, the less money you put up. And the less money you put up means you secure a better future that is not saddled with debt. Now, besides episode 4 and the tips I gave you in this episode, I've put together a free training for you to learn how to save even more money on college. Savings, by the way, you can use to invest in your life and not give it away to colleges to saddle you with more debt. And if you take on more debt, it'll have you feeling like Marty in Back to the Future when he's staring at the disappearing photo. A future that you never planned on nor wanted. The training, by the way, is at cpcshow.com. Now, why am I doing this? I'm doing this to give you back more time and free up the amount of debt that you take on in your life. I'm also giving you this free training because you may find the information valuable enough to want to learn even more, and maybe work with my company for college planning in the future. But if not, no worries. The free training will show you more tips and tricks how to extract more money for financial aid so you don't end up like Marty staring at a disappearing photo. I want to thank you for listening, and I will see you in the next episode.
That's all for this episode of College Prep Confidential. To discover how to give your student a better future by increasing financial aid, improving test scores, and reducing stress, visit our website at cpcshow.com. That's cpcshow.com.